Good morning, my name is Trooper Michael Ruffin with the Mass State Police, and I've been asked today to talk to you guys a little bit about some of our robotic platforms. And first off, we'll start with a little bit of why the bomb squad needs robots. So the evolution of the robots, you can see we have 4 different examples here. Over the years, given the hazardous nature of our job, having a way to remotely look at and potentially move items that are considered to be a hazard is a very beneficial thing for a bomb squad. So the first robot that we have here is the Northrop Grumman F6A. Originally, used to be remote tech. They were bought out by Northrop Grumman. It's manufactured in Tennessee. This is the largest robot we have. It's not really practical for day-to-day use. However, every bomb tech in the United States goes through hazardous devices school for the FBI down in Redstone. And this is the platform that you primarily get trained on as a bomb tech. One of the big advantages of this larger platform is the dexterity of it. And it's very user-friendly. It uses a control panel similar to this in a couple different configurations where you can see everything's laid out, how the robot works, and it's just plug and play. You just flip a switch to get it to move. This can be set up in a completely remote configuration where you actually have an operator's platform that has visual, your cameras and stuff like that, so that you can, from a distance, remotely operate this. And again, its size kind of lends it to have some benefits and some negative aspects. A big benefit to this is that you can do more work. It's a heavier robot. It has a higher lift capacity. It can get into some places, even given its size, due to the flippers on the front and the fact that the heavy appendages can be moved out front or towards the back. You can actually maneuver it upstairs pretty easily. The one big drawback to this is that it's about a 600-pound robot. So you can't really just throw it in the back of a truck and get it to a potential work site easily. But given the amount of stuff that you can do with it and the high level of dexterity that you have, this is a great training platform for us to get guys up to speed on some of the other robots that we use a little more commonly on call-outs. Another big benefit to this robot is that given its weight and its size, its robust nature allows us to add tools to it, such as this percussion actuated neutralizer, which is basically a 12-gauge shotgun that we use to shoot water or different types of projectiles to attempt to render safe hazardous items from a distance. Some of the smaller robots are not capable of having any sort of de-armor tool set on them because of their size. Moving on, the next robot we have here is the Kinetic North America Talon. The next 3 robots we're going to talk about are actually manufactured right here in Massachusetts, which is a great benefit to us because we've had a long-standing working relationship with these companies where they've helped us out. We've done some research and development, and they're very user-friendly, and it's nice having them close by if we have a question about an issue we're having with the robot or something that we need help with. So the same thing, you'll notice that as we get into the smaller robots, we're actually moving the technology forward a little bit more. So just to give a perspective, this is early 2000s technology, moving down to that little iron robot 110, which is a more modern setup. One thing that these next 3 robots have, actually all 4 of these robots are military manufactured. They were designed for use by the military and then adopted for police agencies. And that technology that the military uses obviously has been tried over the past 18 years in various combat zones throughout the world. And the research and development that went into making these things able to operate in a multitude of different locations, different terrain, and different settings, either urban or rural, has made them the perfect platform for state and local bomb techs to use. So the Kinetic North America, now getting into probably about the 80 to 100 pound range, depending on the configuration of it. It uses 6 BB2590 batteries, which are again a military type setup. And the OCU you can see is very similar to the plug and play toggle switch setup that we had on the F6A. So you have a joystick to drive it, and you have a multitude of other tools that can be added to this, including remote firing sets. This robot is actually big enough to hold some of our smaller de-armors and use them remotely. And again, the idea behind this is that we have a call, we believe that there's something hazardous, so we have a way to get eyes on it before we actually send a person down. And this robot also has, as the technology is getting newer, the major improvements that we look at that's a benefit to us is the radios that actually operate remotely become greater range, better communication, so we could have more high-powered cameras with a better resolution, which makes it easier for us to figure out what we're looking at when we're on a call. The addition of high-powered lights, we have 24-hour calls for service, and day, night, interior, exterior, it doesn't matter. These robots are outfitted with either infrared, white light, or a combination of the two to allow us to do what we need to do at any place at any time. Moving on to the PackBot, the 510. So there's a couple different ones. That robot right there is actually the 110. This is the 510, and there's a middle one that's a 310. And again, this what you lose in size and being able to lift and drag heavy stuff, the smaller you go, you gain a little bit in mobility and agility. So the smaller robots are much better at moving quickly to what we need to do, to where we need to go, and at some points too, because they're a little bit lighter, it's a little bit easier to maneuver them on stairs, over obstacles, and stuff like that. And then if there is a situation that occurs where the robot goes down, we can recover the smaller ones a little bit easier than if the large robot goes down. Moving forward too, as we're getting the technologies coming up a little bit more, this is an older 510. We have been continually upgrading the equipment that we have. And one thing that the military did early on was to start implementing controls. So you can see the Talon, we went from a large OCU toggle switch, and this particular 510 is actually controlled by a PlayStation 2 controller. And the Talon actually went with an Xbox controller for its newer generation, and that was because they noticed that younger kids in the military were coming in that were familiar with using these types of controls, and that they could set up an operating system that would make these easier to use for the newer generation of guys. And again, you're limited by the size, the reach, and the distance that you can go based on the radio system. And the newer robots that we have coming out now with their new persistent radio systems, our range has significantly increased. And that means that, we can be further away and do what we have to do with them. The last platform we have here is, we call it a Throwbot. It's, again, iRobot. iRobot is out of Burlington, Mass, and Ag North America is out of Waltham, Mass. And iRobot, the two robots to the right here, is the same company that makes your Roomba remote vacuum system. And they also do military robots and police. And so this smaller robot, they call it a Throwbot because it's actually been designed that you could throw it. We can throw it through a window. We could throw it off a roof. If it lands upside down, we just have a button we push, it'll self-right itself. And we primarily use this as a surveillance platform. So you can see it doesn't have an arm. There's not a lot of applications for actually manipulating with it. They do make a small arm for it. But again, we primarily use this for our surveillance. And you can see on the robot itself, we have the antenna on the top, and then you have 4 cameras. There's one on each side and one on the rear. And these cameras also have both white light and IR light. So in low to no darkness, we can actually see with this what's going on and use it to get eyes in on a situation. Again, a good application for this is either reconnaissance on a suspect item or potential destruction device, or gaining entry on a search warrant or a barricaded subject or something along that line. And again, the controller now, you have an integral screen that's built into the controller, and then you have your joystick controls similar to a PlayStation setup. And all the functions and features of the robot are controlled through a menu setting. So you just go into the menu, pick what you want to do or what part of the robot you want to use, and then you just manipulate it through the controller. And this is the entire package right here on the OCU and the robot getting a little bit smaller. So I think that's pretty much it for these 4 particular robots. What we're going to do next is we will get the Talon up and running and get some footage of that running outside.
Can you talk a little bit about how you control that robot with their control box?
Want to come in here? I'll show you. This is basically the screen that we're looking at. So we have the ability with this system to change between 4 different camera views. This switch right here. So if we want to take one of the 4 cameras that I'm primarily using are right here. This Ripper camera. We have the wrist camera. We have our mass camera. And then there's also a reverse camera on this. So we use all 4 to try to get situational awareness, but primarily when I'm driving it, I'll either keep it in the 4-way view or I'll go to that wrist view, the lower wrist view, which is actually probably the best one for situational awareness. We think that we're going to be in a tight spot or someplace where we need to have an idea of where our tracks are to make it through like a narrow doorway. We can use that mass camera to actually take and zoom in onto the corners of the robot so we can really tight spaces maneuver it in there. And again, like we talked about inside, all these controls, everything on here is laid out for you. So this, it really is, once spent a few hours on this. Everything's kind of in this drive control right here is a joystick. Was just simply, you move the joystick and then the robot to go. We have speed controls for our drive, the pan tilt, and the arm. So with these three controls, when we manipulate any part of the robot, we can take and speed it up or slow it down. So obviously, if there was a questionable item that we're worried about potentially disturbing it, we'll dial the speed down so that we're not making any jerky movements or motions that could disturb that item. What you saw right there, we typically are using this platform for is to have as a surveillance platform. We can go down, get eyes on, get an idea of what the situation is. If for whatever reason the area that it's in, we need to move it or manipulate it, we're able to do that with the gripper. But again, typically this is just our primary use for it is surveillance. And secondary is moving a hazard. And we've actually used these robots in a multitude of different situations I talked about earlier. Typical bomb squad calls, but also hazardous materials calls, which we get quite a few of, where it's an environment that you can't safely enter. So we can actually take a meter, monitor air quality or gas, that put it into the gripper, and then remotely make entrance into a facility that maybe having some sort of CBER emergency or chemical plant that has had some sort of incident or accident. We can remotely monitor the air and make sure that it's safe for people to come in and do their job behind it. So there's a multitude of different hazardous situations where we don't want to necessarily send a person in right away. We can get the robot in there and at least get situational awareness of what we have and then come up with a game plan on how to control. Again, some of the other things that this robot has, the lights and the cameras allow us to operate in a day-night type situations. But also, this was originally designed by the Navy and is fully waterproof. So we can run this through snow. It can go through a mud puddle. It's not going to short out or affect any of the operating systems. It can be raining out here. We can still use it all weather, all conditions type of application, which again is good for that chemical type scenario. This robot and OCU station can be completely deconned in the event that they were to get chemically contaminated. That's pretty much it. The operator will typically be operating this from a remote area. The distances will depend on the type of radio system that we have on it, how far we can get. And another limiting factor is environmentally, what type of a construction building we're in, and what is the RF signature around it. If there's any other interference that could get in the way of the radio communication between the two.
And from the time where you bring a trooper, say, from the road, and bring him into the unit and send him out for training, how long does it take him to train up so that he can do this?
Right now, the to become a civilian bomb tech is hazardous devices school run by the FBI down in Redstone. The wait period right now we're looking at about an 18-month backlog for a new guy to get on the bomb squad, get signed up. 18 months to get him down to school, and then it's a 6-week course down there. So that's 6 weeks. They'll learn everything from response, robotics, specialized tools, equipment, training, and case studies of what guys have done in the past, good and bad, to make them a well-rounded bomb tech coming out of there.
Well, we certainly appreciate your dedication to this very hazardous line of work. And how many calls does the bomb squad run in a year?
So I want to say what we have last year, Scott. It was over 1,500 calls for service. I think it was closer to 1,900 for last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's probably about that.
So we do a multitude of not just emergency response, but special events, pre-planned missions and operations, warrant services for a multitude of different units within the Mass State Police, and just a whole host of stuff. All of us except for Trooper Fahey have explosive detection canines, which are labs that we use for a multitude of evidentiary purposes, searches for firearms, shell casings, and then explosives as well. Protective missions, as well as responding. We get called outside once if the patrol guys are not available with their gun dogs, then the next call will be for us to get our dogs and try to help out with whatever we can. And there's 12 of us spread throughout the state of Massachusetts on call 24 hours a day.
We certainly appreciate your dedication, and we thank you for taking some time today to help us at the museum to do this virtual education for the explosive detector.
Happy to help, sir.
All right, thank you, sir.